I was 14 when I met her. She was 15. Just two awkward, slightly nerdy teenagers trying to survive high school without completely falling apart. We had science class together, and the only reason we initially noticed each other was that we were assigned seats next to one another. Nothing fancy, no grand, romantic moment. Just two bored kids forced to share a lab table, and occasionally the smell of burning Bunsen burners. But I still remember the way she used to doodle in the margins of her notebook, tiny suns, birds, and little cartoon faces. She'd smile at her sketches, completely zoned out, like she was somewhere else entirely. And something about that stuck with me. I didn't know it then, but that was the first time I noticed her. Not just the girl who sat next to me, but her. The way she chewed the cap of her pen. The way she tapped her foot when she was thinking. All of it. Somehow, miraculously, she noticed me too. We became friends, then the best friends. And before I even realized it was happening, we were more than that. We talked all the time, on the phone, through text, late nights sneaking around just to sit outside and talk about anything and everything. It felt safe, easy, like breathing. By the time I turned 18, I was convinced she was the one. The one. That kind of deep, can't breathe without you kind of love. The sort of people they write about, the kind they say never lasts, but we were sure it would. We planned out a future like we were building a dream house out of Legos. Where we'd live, what kind of house we'd have, how many pets we'd adopt, and how our kids would have the perfect names. Ones we picked out while lying on the floor, laughing until our faces hurt. We even got married before either of us had lived a real adult day in our lives. I was 19, she was 20. We barely had jobs, barely had savings, but we had each other. And in that moment, that felt like enough. And sure, people warned us, said we were too young, that we didn't know who we were yet, that love is different at 25 than it is at 15. But we brushed them off, thought we were smarter, that our love was different, stronger, that we were somehow immune to the struggles everyone else went through. We weren't, not even close. And now? Now I'm sitting here, staring at the ceiling, 5 years later, wondering if I ever really knew her at all. I wondered if what we had was love, or just two kids clinging to a dream they didn't know how to let go of. It wasn't always bad. That's the part that still messes with me. There were good days, funny ones, quiet ones, normal ones. Days when we cooked breakfast together and danced in the kitchen barefoot. Days when she'd fall asleep with her head on my chest and mumble how lucky she felt. If it had always been bad, maybe I would have left sooner, but it wasn't. That's what made it so confusing. But if I'm being honest with myself now, there were red flags even early on. Stuff I brushed off. Stuff I told myself wasn't a big deal because I loved her. Because I didn't want to believe it could become something worse. She drank. A lot. Way more than someone her age should have. At first, it felt like social drinking. A glass of wine with dinner, a few beers on weekends. But it wasn't just that. It became her way of coping with stress, anger, boredom, anything. When things got tense, her first instinct was always to grab a drink. And when she drank, she turned into someone I barely recognized. It wasn't just slurred words or stumbling around. It was a complete transformation. She'd get angry, not just annoyed, angry. There were nights she'd scream over the tiniest things. Like if I forgot to take out the trash or came home a few minutes late. I'm talking full-blown yelling matches over nothing. And sometimes she got physical. There was one night I'll never forget. We were arguing, something dumb, I don't even remember what about. She was drunk, really drunk. Her face was red, her hands shaking, and then she just snapped. Threw her phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Then she picked up a glass and threw it too. It barely missed me. The look in her eyes, it was like she wasn't even there. She hit me that night. Not hard, not enough to leave a bruise, but enough to make me freeze. Enough to make my body go cold. I didn't hit back. I didn't even yell. I just stood there, staring at her like she'd turned into a stranger. And what did I tell myself? She's just going through something. I blamed everything but her. Work stress, family drama. Maybe it was her past. Perhaps something had triggered her. I convinced myself that people don't act like that unless they're in pain. And I wanted to help her through that pain. I wanted to be the one who stayed when things got hard. Then she cheated. It was a coworker. Someone she had always said was just a friend. She talked about him sometimes, but not in a way that raised alarms, at least not at first. But one night, her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I wasn't even trying to snoop, but the notification preview showed his name and a heart emoji. That's when I knew. I opened the messages. I wish I hadn't. The things she said to him, the photos, the inside jokes, the way she talked like I didn't even exist, it shattered me. I felt physically sick reading them. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She didn't even cry. She just said, "I was drunk." It didn't mean anything. Like that made it better. The fact that she couldn't remember made it less real. And I forgave her. I hate that part. I wish I could say I left. I wish I had the strength to walk out and never look back. But I didn't. I told myself it was a one-time thing. People make mistakes. That alcohol had blurred her judgment, and that deep down, she still loved me. I thought love meant staying and fighting for someone, and pushing through the hard stuff. I thought maybe if I forgave her, she'd see how much I cared and never do it again. But all that forgiveness did was teach her one thing, that I'd stay, no matter what. Things got better for a while, or I convinced myself they did. After everything, the fighting, the drinking, the cheating, we had a stretch where things felt normal again. Maybe it wasn't real healing, but we had a routine. She worked long hours. I handled things at home. I'd clean, cook dinner, and wait for her to come home. We laughed again. We started binge-watching shows together, just as we used to. We made inside jokes. We even talked about getting a dog again, like we'd always dreamed. And in those moments, this may be what growth looks like. Maybe we were finally learning how to move on from all the pain. I wanted to believe that so badly, so I clung to it. I ignored the gut feeling in the back of my mind that whispered, "This is temporary." Because then, the distance crept in, slow, silent, like fog rolling into a room. You don't notice it until you're already surrounded. It started with the little things. She stopped touching me. I don't mean sex, I mean just connection. The kind of small, warm gestures that tell you someone still sees you. No more random hugs from behind while I cooked. No brushing fingers while handing over a coffee mug. No hand on my back when she passed behind me. It was as if her body had forgotten how to reach for mine. We could sit on the same couch, just a foot apart, and feel like we were in different universes. We stopped sharing snacks, stopped sharing space. Her warmth had been replaced with something cold and distant, and I didn't know how to get it back. She'd come home from work and barely say hi. She'd go straight into her office, lock the door. I'd ask what she was doing, and she'd say, "Just decompressing." That made sense at first. Her job was stressful. I got it. But decompressing turned into hours. Sometimes she wouldn't come out at all until it was time to sleep. And even then, she'd slip into bed without a word, turn her back to me, and scroll through her phone with the brightness turned down. I'd lie there in the dark, pretending to be asleep, listening to her typing or swiping or whatever it was she was doing. My mind would spiral. Was she talking to someone else again? Was she watching something she didn't want me to see? Or was she just done with us? I tried asking her, gently at first. "Hey, are you okay? I noticed you've been kind of distant lately." And she'd just brush it off. "You're being paranoid. You're overthinking again. You're too emotional." And that was the knife. Because I wasn't being paranoid, I wasn't reading too much into things. I was living with someone who had already checked out and was too afraid or too selfish to say it. I wanted to believe her. I did. I wanted to trust that this was just a phase. Maybe she was tired, work was overwhelming, perhaps she just needed space, But trust doesn't survive in silence. It dies there. It withers away when communication becomes one-sided, when your questions get shut down, when your feelings get invalidated, when your presence is met with absence. I felt like I was living with a stranger and sleeping beside a ghost. And the saddest part? She didn't even seem to notice I was disappearing too. I remember the moment like a slow-motion scene from a movie, one of those painfully quiet scenes where nothing explodes, but everything falls apart. I had just made us dinner, her favorite, believe it or not. Pasta with garlic bread, Caesar salad on the side, and even that dessert she used to crave from the little bakery down the street. I went out of my way to make the night feel special. I thought maybe we could reconnect. Maybe, just maybe, it would be one of those evenings where we laugh like old times and remember why we even got married in the first place. She sat down at the table. I poured her a glass of wine. We clinked glasses. She barely took a sip, barely touched her plate, just stared at it like it had nothing to do with her. I asked if everything was okay. She looked up at me, and I swear, I've never seen someone's eyes look so unfamiliar. It was as if I were sitting across from a stranger, like she had been rehearsing this moment for days, maybe weeks. And then she said it. I've been talking to someone. That's all she said at first. Just that. I blinked. My heart froze. I tried to keep my voice steady. What do you mean? She looked back down at her wine glass, swirled it a little like she was considering how to answer. Not because she didn't know, but because she wanted to control the impact. Then she looked up and finally gave me the whole truth. I've been in a relationship with someone I met online. Through a game. A game. A stupid mobile game. You know, the kind with chat rooms, avatars, and weird usernames. That's where she found him. Some guy halfway across the country. A person she'd never met in real life. A name she wouldn't even tell me. They talked every day, she said. They bonded over silly things at first, such as team strategy and leveling up characters. But then it got deeper. She said they clicked, said he listened to her. They had long conversations about life, dreams, and everything in between. He understands me, she said, like it was some profound declaration. She said it as if she were talking about an old friend. Like this man was the answer to a question she hadn't asked me in months. And I just sat there, numbers speechless, trying to process how the person I built my life with had been building a new one behind my back, with someone who lived inside a phone screen. I tried to ask questions. When did this start? Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy? But none of it mattered. She was calm, detached. She didn't cry, didn't apologize, didn't even flinch. And then, as if she were just placing an order at a cafe, she said it. I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce. Flat, final, no build-up, no hesitation, as if it were already decided, and I was just the last to find out. I remember the fork slipping out of my hand and clattering onto the plate. I remember the lump in my throat that made it impossible to breathe. And I remember sitting there in silence, staring at the woman I thought would be my forever, realizing that she had already left me long before those words ever made it to her lips. And just like that, the dinner turned cold, so did everything else. She told me it had only been going on for a month. 1 month, 30 days, that's what she claimed. She sat across from me, still eerily calm, and said it as if it were some kind of damage control. As if shaving off a few months from the betrayal would somehow make it easier to swallow. But my gut said otherwise, because here's the thing. You don't fall out of love in 30 days. Not when you've built a life together. Not when you've shared birthdays, road trips, tears, and dreams. You don't just wake up one day and decide, I love someone else, unless you've already been drifting toward them for a long, long time. And you don't build emotional intimacy with a stranger in a few weeks, unless those conversations didn't just start a month ago. They had time to grow roots, so I waited until she left for work one morning. She always left her old tablet in the kitchen drawer, forgotten like a relic of our early days. What she didn't remember was that it was still synced to her old messaging app. Notifications no longer appeared on the lock screen, but they would show up once you opened it. It was all there, everything. Hundreds, no, thousands of messages, scroll after scroll of flirty emojis, pet names, inside jokes, and photos I had never seen before. Pictures of her smiling, posing, dressing up for someone who wasn't me. Some texts were innocent at first. You're fun to talk to. That was a great match. I like your energy. But then things escalated. I wish you were here right now. I feel like you see me in a way my husband doesn't. He still thinks I'm just tired. LOL. And that one gutted me. Back during the months when she was pulling away, skipping dinner, locking herself in her office, brushing me off with a tired smile, those were the exact words she fed me. I'm just tired. It's work. It's nothing. Turns out she wasn't tired. She wasn't overworked. She was busy falling in love with a stranger on her phone. While I was folding her laundry, she was sending mirror selfies to a man whose name I didn't even know. While I was cooking her meals, she was texting him about how she wished she could feel his arms around her. While I was staying up at night, worrying that I had somehow failed her, she was sending late-night heart emojis to someone who had never even set foot in our home. The betrayal wasn't just in the cheating, it was in the lies, in the effort she put into covering it all up, in the skill she showed while living two lives, one with me and one with him. It was in the morning she kissed me on the cheek and told me, "Have a good day," only to go back inside and message him. He left. I miss you already. And maybe the worst part? The ease. The casual way she looked me in the eyes for months and rewrote reality like it was no big deal. Like I was too blind, too soft, or too trusting to notice. And you know what? For a long time, I was. I wish I could tell you that was the worst part. That she was sitting across from me, looking me in the eye and telling me she didn't love me anymore, was as bad as it got. But no, not even close. Because after she'd finished gutting me, after dropping the kind of emotional bomb that leaves you numb and barely breathing, she looked at me with this strange calmness and asked for a favor. A favor. She said she didn't want to spend money on lawyers, that it would be easier if I filed the divorce papers. Easier for her. As if my feelings, my pain, my entire world collapsing didn't matter. She told me she couldn't afford legal fees, that she was trying to be practical, because she was already planning to move out, she said. Already looking at apartments. She made it sound like she was planning a weekend getaway. Like this wasn't our life together being torn apart. And then, this is the part that almost made me laugh in disbelief. She said she still wanted us to be friends. Friends? With the woman who cheated on me behind my back for months. Who looked me in the face every morning while texting someone else goodnight. Who ripped apart the life we built as if it were nothing. Like I was nothing. She said, "You've always been such a good person. I don't want to lose you completely." As if being a good person means volunteering to be her emotional safety net after she kicked me to the curb. She wanted a clean break, a quiet exit, a cheap divorce with no drama. She tried to hurt me and then turned around and asked me to help clean up the mess she made. And you know what? For half a second, I almost agreed because I'm the kind of person who tries to keep peace, who avoids fights, who wants to believe the best in people, even when they don't deserve it. But then I looked at her, and I realized I didn't owe her anything. Not my help, not my kindness, not my silence. She wanted friendship as a backup plan. I was her safety net, her soft landing, the guy she could emotionally destroy and still count on to be there. Yeah, no thanks. After everything, after the cheating, the lying, the months of emotional whiplash, I still felt stuck. Like I was sinking in quicksand with no one around to throw me a rope. Every time I tried to breathe or think straight, the weight of the situation pulled me deeper. What made it worse was that I wasn't even physically well. I was jobless. Not because I was lazy, not because I wasn't trying, but because my body was failing me. I had a hernia that made it painful just to get out of bed. I was also scheduled for eye surgery. Half the time, I couldn't even see properly, let alone walk without feeling like I was going to collapse. And she knew this. She knew I was vulnerable, in pain, not at my best. And yet she still expected me to be the one to carry the weight of the divorce, to handle the legal paperwork, to figure out the logistics. She wanted me to drag my broken body to a courthouse and file for a separation on her behalf. She couldn't even give me the courtesy of leaving me with some dignity. She just wanted it to be easy for her. I didn't know what to do. I had no job, no energy, and no backup plan. Emotionally, I was tapped out. Physically, I was falling apart. I'd stare at the ceiling for hours, wondering if this was it. If this was just what life was going to be now. Pain, betrayal, silence, and then my mom called. She has this voice, this particular tone that cuts through everything. The kind of tone only a mom has when she knows. She didn't say, "Hey, how are you?" or start with small talk. She said, "What's going on?" And that was it. That simple question broke me. I didn't hold back. I told her everything. I spilled the entire mess about the cheating, the emotional manipulation, the divorce, the surgeries, the financial fear. I think I even cried. No, I know I cried. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to be strong. I wasn't trying to fake it. And she didn't flinch. She didn't lecture me or say, "I told you so." She didn't ask why I stayed so long, or make me feel like I'd failed. She just listened, quietly, intently. And when I was done, she said 7 words I will never forget. "I'll help you pay for a lawyer." That was it. That was all I needed to hear. She said, "You're not doing this alone. Not this time." And just like that, I felt the first crack of light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. Because for the first time in weeks, maybe even months, someone was on my side. Someone saw me, heard me, believed me. I wasn't just a husband whose wife threw him away. I wasn't a mistake, a burden, or a failure. I was a person, a son, and someone was willing to fight for me when I was too tired to fight for myself. And that changed everything. That's the part nobody warns you about. When you finally decide to stand up for yourself, when you stop being the doormat and start drawing lines in the sand, you feel guilty, even when the other person thoroughly deserves it, even when they're the ones who tore everything down first. It doesn't matter how right you are, there's still a voice in your head asking, "Am I being too harsh?" Right now, she doesn't know I've got a lawyer. She thinks I'm still the same version of me she walked all over. She thinks I'll play nice, that I'll be mature and civil, and do exactly what she asked, file the divorce papers, sign them, and let her walk away with zero resistance. She has no idea that my mom is backing me now. She has no idea that I'm done being passive. She has no clue that this isn't going to be the clean, simple exit she imagined. She thinks she can just pack up, move halfway across the country, and play house with her little online fantasy. Like I'm just going to disappear. Like I'm going to stay behind and keep licking the wounds she gave me while she skips off into the sunset. But here's the reality. Divorce has consequences. And for the first time, she's going to feel some of them. I've started the process, quietly, strategically. She's going to get served, and she won't see it coming. There'll be financial implications, real ones, because while she was busy building a secret relationship, I was still holding down our life, cooking, cleaning, managing bills with the bit of strength I had, while recovering from multiple health issues. And she knows that. She took advantage of my loyalty, my vulnerability, my pain. And now she's about to find out what happens when the person you think will always forgive you finally doesn't. But still, part of me wrestles with it. Is it wrong to make it hard for her? I think about it late at night. I imagine her reaction when she finds out I lawyered up, when she realizes she can't just ghost out of the mess she created. And there's a sliver of guilt, like maybe I'm being spiteful, like perhaps I'm stooping to her level. But then I remember the bruises, not just on my body, but on my self-worth. I remember the lies, the gaslighting, the nights she locked herself in a room and told me I was the one being dramatic. I remember the anxiety, the fear of saying the wrong thing. The months I spent wondering if I was the problem, if I wasn't enough, If I were too needy, I remember crying in the bathroom so she wouldn't see how broken I was. Number. It's not wrong to protect yourself. It's not wrong to demand accountability. It's not wrong to stop letting someone else write your story while they tear you apart in private. This isn't revenge. This is survival. It's necessary. Even now, after everything she's done, I still catch myself making excuses for her. It's automatic, like a reflex I can't control. She was stressed. She didn't mean to cheat. She had a rough childhood. She drinks because she's in pain. She doesn't know how to process emotion. She never really learned what love looks like. I used to tell myself these things every single day, because that was easier than facing the truth. Easier than admitting that someone I loved, really loved, was capable of hurting me so deeply and so often without ever stopping to think about the damage. But here's what I've learned the hard way. Every time I gave her grace, she took it for granted. Every time I said, "Let's talk," she lied through her teeth. Every time I stayed when I should have left, she pushed a little further. She'd test the boundaries, chip away at them until I couldn't even remember where the line used to be. I kept telling myself love meant staying. Love meant forgiveness. Love meant patience. I thought if I could just show her what real commitment looked like, she'd rise to meet it. I wanted to teach her what love was by never giving up on her. But all that did was show her she could do anything, and I'd still be there, still trying and still holding us together. There were nights she would scream at me for no reason. Nights she broke glasses and stormed out, and I'd be the one cleaning up the mess, literally and emotionally. And then the next morning, she'd act like nothing happened. Or worse, she'd flip it on me, make me feel like I caused the explosion by bringing up something she didn't want to talk about. And through it all, I kept trying to fix it. I read articles on communication. I suggested therapy. I bought her books about childhood trauma and healing. I wrote letters. I apologized for things that weren't even my fault, just to keep the peace. Because somewhere along the line, I convinced myself that if I could just love her the right way, she'd get better. But she didn't want to get better. Not really. She didn't want to reflect, grow, or change. She wanted someone to absorb her chaos so she never had to deal with it herself. And I was that someone. I was the punching bag, the emotional sponge, the constant fixer. I stayed loyal to someone who didn't even know what loyalty meant. Who thought secrecy was usual? Who thought being in a relationship meant never being questioned, even when her actions screamed dishonesty? And now I'm sitting here with nothing to show for it but scars. Not just the kind of people who can see, not bruises or scratches, but the deep, invisible kind, the ones that mess with how you see yourself, the ones that whisper, "You weren't enough," even when you know you gave everything. It's not just about her cheating. It's not just about the betrayal. It's about all the little pieces of myself I handed over, hoping she'd see the value in them. It's about the emotional labor I did every single day. It's about the time, the energy, the loyalty, the forgiveness, all poured into someone who was never planning to pour any of it back. And now, I'm left with the realization that I can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. And maybe the most challenging part to accept is this: I shouldn't have tried so hard in the first place. Out of pure desperation, I posted my story online. It wasn't some grand plan. I wasn't looking for sympathy or validation, honestly. I just didn't know where else to go. My friends didn't know what was going on. My family, aside from my mom, was either unaware or unhelpful. I felt isolated, like I was going crazy inside my own house. I didn't want to burden anyone I knew, so I typed it all up anonymously on a throwaway account and just hit post. I figured a few people would read it. One or two would say something worthwhile. I didn't expect much, I just needed to vent. But what happened next completely blindsided me. Within hours, I had hundreds of comments, thousands of upvotes. DMs people from all over the world, total strangers, came flooding into the thread. And they weren't just responding, they were angry for me, like legitimately pissed off. They read my story and said, "This is not okay." They called it what it was: manipulation, gaslighting, betrayal, emotional abuse. They weren't sugarcoating anything. One person wrote, "You should have left the first time she cheated, but now you burn it down. Take everything. Don't let her walk away without consequences." Another said, "Lawyer up. Don't tell her a thing. Make this divorce as hard for her as she made your life." One that hit me hard. "You stayed because you loved her. She stayed because you made her life easier. Don't confuse the two." And then there were the ones who just got it, who'd been through similar pain, who knew what it was like to give everything to someone and watch them treat your love like trash. People who said, "This was me a year ago. I walked away. It was hell at first, but I swear to you, peace is waiting on the other side." Some cracked jokes to lighten the mood. Stuff like, "Bro, hit the gym, get a dog, and become the hottest ex she'll regret losing." Others were dead serious. "This is what palimony is for. You gave her years of your life. You cared for her, cooked for her, held her through her tantrums. You deserve compensation, if not legally, then emotionally." And honestly, every type of comment helped. The funny ones made me laugh again, something I hadn't done in a while. The angry ones made me feel seen. The practical ones provided me with a clear game plan. And the empathetic ones reminded me I wasn't alone. Because until then, I felt like I was losing my mind. I wondered if I was overreacting. I may have failed her somehow. Perhaps I should have tried harder to fix things. But reading those comments, hearing strangers say, "No, you did everything you could. She chose this," that snapped something loose inside me, something I'd been holding in for way too long. And the common thread through every single message: leave, now, and don't look back. That one line kept repeating over and over. Different words, different phrasing, but the same message. You don't owe her more of your time. You don't owe her your silence. You don't owe her a painless exit. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel like the crazy one. I didn't feel weak, naive, or overly emotional. I felt like a man who had been betrayed and was finally allowed to say it out loud. That post, just a random Reddit post, gave me something I hadn't felt in a long, long time: clarity. And with clarity came strength. People think cheating is about sex, about some heated moment of weakness, some drunken night or flirty conversation that goes too far. But it's so much more than that. Cheating isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's psychological. And in my case, it was financial too. See, she made more money than I. That's not a problem on its own. I've never been the kind of guy to feel threatened by that. But she used it. She turned it into a weapon, to leverage. Whenever we argued, she'd remind me who paid the bills. Anytime I brought up how I was feeling, she'd say, "Well, maybe if you had a real job, you wouldn't be so sensitive." When I got sick, when my vision started going and I needed surgery, she didn't step up. She stepped back. She watched me struggle to get out of bed some mornings, watched me try to hold it together through the pain, and instead of asking, "How can I help?" she started disappearing, emotionally, physically. She'd lock herself in her office for hours. She'd snap at me for asking if she wanted dinner. And when I tried to talk about what was happening to us, she told me I was too emotional, that I needed to man up, that I was exhausting to be around. But here's the thing, she knew I was vulnerable. She knew I couldn't just pick up and leave. She knew I didn't have the energy, the money, or the stability to start over. And instead of helping me up, she pushed me further down. I look back now and realize I wasn't in a marriage. I was in a controlled environment, one where I had to monitor my tone, words, and reactions constantly. One where I was walking on eggshells even when I hadn't done anything wrong. She gaslit me, over and over again, made me question my memory, my intentions, my worth. I started apologizing for things I hadn't even done, just to keep the peace. I started thanking her for staying after she cheated. Think about that. That's not love, that's manipulation. And now that I'm fighting back, now that I've gotten a lawyer, now that I've finally drawn the line, She's pretending like I'm the one being unfair. It was just a scheduling conflict, not cheating. An oops moment. A minor bump in the road that I'm making a big deal out of. She said to me, "You're overreacting. People cheat. It doesn't mean they stop caring. Number people who cheat and then lie, hide, manipulate, and deflect, they stopped caring a long time ago. This isn't about an online affair anymore. This isn't about some fantasy guy she met through a mobile game. This is about power. This is about someone who became accustomed to being in control of the house, the finances, the rules, and the relationship. And now that I've finally taken that control back, she doesn't know how to handle it. She wants to walk away clean. She wants to be the victim. She wants me to play the role of the heartbroken but obedient ex-husband who just makes things easy. But guess what? I've done easy. I've done quiet. I've done forgiving. Now, I'm doing right. This isn't revenge, it's self-respect. Because for the first time in a long time, I'm not letting her rewrite the story. I'm not handing over the pen anymore. It's weird, you know? For the longest time, I thought the most challenging part would be losing her, and losing the person I built my world around. The person I thought I'd grow old with. The person I defended when nobody else understood her. The person I forgave more times than I should have. But it turns out, that wasn't the most challenging part. The hardest part was convincing myself I needed her, that I wasn't whole without her, that my identity, my worth, was somehow tied to keeping her happy, even when I was miserable, even when she broke me down, piece by piece. I thought love was supposed to hurt sometimes. I thought working through it meant tolerating anything, even betrayal, even emotional manipulation. I was even being made to feel like I was too sensitive, too weak, too clingy. But now I'm free. And I don't just mean legally, I mean emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I'm free from the shame, free from the gaslighting, free from waking up every day wondering if I'll say the wrong thing and ruin her mood. I no longer have to tiptoe around someone who resented me. I don't have to keep waiting for her to come out of her locked office. I don't have to pretend I'm okay just to avoid another blow-up. I don't have to keep shrinking myself to make her comfortable. I've got a lawyer who's going to make sure she doesn't get to walk away untouched. I've got my mom, my rock, who didn't hesitate for a second to stand behind me. I've got a long recovery ahead with 2 surgeries, yeah. But at least I won't be healing next to someone who secretly wishes I'd stay broken. And for the first time in years, I'm starting to feel strong again. Strong enough to speak up, strong enough to put myself first, strong enough to say no more. She thought I'd roll over and make it easy for her. She thought she could cheat, lie, leave, and still come out as the hero. But love isn't what she thought it was. And now she's going to learn that actions, real actions, come with real consequences. I'm not looking to destroy her. I'm not looking for revenge. But I am going to stand up for myself. Because for years, I was the guy who swallowed his pride. The guy who took the blame. The guy who stayed. And now, I'm the guy who left. I'm the guy who chose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-respect over self-destruction. I used to be afraid of what life would look like without her. Now, I'm more afraid of what life would have looked like if I'd stayed. I'm not afraid anymore. Not starting over. Not of healing alone. Not facing the world without the woman I thought I needed. Because she's not my anchor anymore. I am. If this story feels even a little familiar, if you've been sitting in silence, unsure whether what you're feeling is valid, questioning whether you're the bad guy for wanting something better, then stop for just a second, breathe, and read this carefully. You are not weak for wanting to be loved the right way, for craving connection, for those who need honesty, attention, and mutual respect. That's not needy. That's human. You are not being dramatic for feeling hurt. Betrayal isn't a scratch, it's a deep cut. And just because you can't show it on an X-ray, doesn't mean it didn't break something inside you. Your pain is real. Don't let anyone downplay it just because it makes them uncomfortable. You are not the villain for saying, "I'm done." You don't need to wait until you're emotionally wrecked, physically sick, or completely numb before you walk away. You don't owe anyone your suffering just to prove you tried hard enough. Cheating is never just a mistake. It's not an oopsie. It's not a slip-up. It's a decision, calculated, deliberate, and repeated. It's a choice to put someone else's feelings, desires, and validation ahead of your trust. And when they lie to your face about it again and again, that's not love, that's disrespect. Abusers, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, don't stop just because you cry, or beg, or love them harder. They stop when you put up a wall, when you enforce a boundary, when you say no more and mean it. And even then, it's not easy. You'll still second guess yourself. You'll miss them some nights. You'll remember the good times and wonder if you might have given up too soon. But I promise you didn't. You don't owe loyalty to someone who treated you like an option, who only showed affection when it benefited them, who used your kindness as a doormat, who weaponized your empathy and made you feel like your needs were a burden. You owe it to yourself to leave before the damage becomes something you carry into every future relationship. Before you forget what real peace feels like. Before you lose so much of yourself, you don't recognize the person in the mirror. So, if someone offers help, take it. If a friend says you deserve better, believe them. If a lawyer is an option, hire one. Document everything. Set your boundaries. Protect your mental health like your life depends on it. Because one day, it just might. Rebuild your life in pieces if you have to. You will be stronger than you were before, not because pain made you strong, but because you chose to get back up. And let me say this as clearly as I can. You still have a future. You still have a life worth living. And that life, that future, it's so much brighter without the person who made you feel like love meant pain. Let them go. Let the pain pass through you. And then walk, no, run, toward the version of yourself that finally knows peace. You're not alone, and this time it's your turn to be okay.